and welcome to Points of Interest. I'm one of your hosts, Jake, along with my co-host, James, over here.
Hey, guys.
If you're new to the show, this is Inverted Reality's gaming news podcast. Each week, we bring news and stories from around the internet and present them to you in one nice, easy-to-consume package at your own pace. You can find the show at youtube.com/invertedreality. We usually post on Fridays. No, Friday. It's been a minute.
It's Fridays. Normally it's Fridays.
I'll be honest, we've been away for a little bit. If you missed it a few days ago, we streamed after EA's E3 conference to discuss what we were expecting from the show, to talk about the conference we just watched, and kind of what we were hoping to see. So we'd been away for a month. If you missed it, go watch it. It's still there. That's right. Twitch.tv/InvertedRealityGames. But follow us on Twitter at IRGames. Stay up to date with what we're doing.
That's right.
We'll let you know when we go live. We're streaming, hoping to get that to more regular thing, maybe make the podcast a live thing, but we'll let you know.
Yeah, exactly.
But,
so normally, like he says, we come to you with a bunch of different stories around the internet. I don't know if you guys know this, but E3 is going on right now.
Sure.
Right this very second as you're watching this,
From the middle of the night.
there is a conference going on that none of us are a part of because we're not fancy people with money or press passes or anything like that. But we got to take a look at some of the E3 conferences that all happened beforehand, unless you're Nintendo and like to be a holdout. We'll have a video for that eventually.
Yeah, but they're, as we're recording, they are doing their conference tomorrow. So we just finished the Sony conference, which every year over year, is our favorite conference.
Yes.
Because we like Sony a lot, and Sony just puts on the best conference. So
That's true. And
maybe
so
that's subjective. Sorry if you don't think so.
We want to try and make this objective. Is that the right word?
Objective meaning
Objective?
Yeah.
Because normally subjective. We want to try and be unbiased here. And so I came in, it's important to think, and they talked about a little bit in the pre-roll after the initial opener that Sean did. They came out like a month ago and said, hey, just so you know, this is what our E3 conference is going to be.
Yeah.
We're going to have our 4 pillars. We got Ghost of Tsushima, Death Stranding, Last of Us Part 2, and Spider-Man. That's what you should expect.
Yep.
And that's exactly what they told us, and that's more or less what we got. We got a couple of premieres that we didn't necessarily expect. But mostly was focused on the pillars of the exclusivity that we were expecting. So we opened in a church.
Yeah, it was really weird. Like, they opened in a building, and for the last several years, if you've watched E3, Sony has done their conference in this huge theater.
Yeah.
Like 2 years ago, lights go down, and the orchestra pops up playing the new God of War theme, and it was really awesome. And the next year, it was that same style of production, like big theater, nice. I would say of the conferences, and this is not to dog on any other conferences, but they are very much like the class touch to what it is. It's not like big, like flash and showboaty. It's like, man, like, welcome to this party. Relax. We're going to take care of you.
Yeah.
That kind of thing.
It was much less of a, here's an opening montage, and then our CEO walks out right away. They always kind of ease into stuff.
They don't force the hype upon you.
Right. They build it. They build it themselves. So it opepened up in a church. Really lo-fi. They had like standing room in the back. Yeah, they had pews in the front. It was really odd. It had like, if you've ever been to like an outdoor wedding, they had like hanging lights going across. It looked like $5 Christmas lights. They just had those all over the place, and it looked super lo-fi. Is the word I wrote down.
Even like you get the shot, and if you've ever watched these kind of conferences, when you watch the actual conference, the camera shot looks really good, and it's like lit well, and it just looks a certain way. But when you look at this, it looks like the like in between like coverage shots, like more like a live news thing. I'm like, this doesn't look like normal E3. And so while we're sitting there, I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, all right, maybe he's just gonna throw to the screen that's behind him, and they're gonna be like, hey, we're here, we're just gonna show you the things we talked about. Check out the screen, and it was gonna be like a pre-produced video kind of thing.
Right.
But it was not that.
No, it wasn't. So Sean comes out and he intros. He basically says what he said a month ago is that we're focusing on these 4 games and just kind of buckle in and just get ready for it. And so then they come out and they had it was a Git Joe.
It's a Git Joe. So essentially, instead of like a banjo, which I think is traditionally 5 strings,
it's like 4 and a half strings.
The 4 down here, and then the 5th one up here.
Yeah.
This is a banjo strung like a guitar.
Yep. So they had that. It was just probably good. I would say almost 5 minutes of a really good,
maybe not quite that
Git Joe playing, but it was a good amount of time where it was
just
basically just him. There may have been some like cello in the background, but then he just kind of faded in the black, and then we got our first look at Last of Us 2, and then all of a sudden the setting that we were in started to make sense.
Yeah, so it goes black, and you pull up. I mean, they transitioned to us showing us the screen, and where we find ourselves looks exactly like, well, pretty much exactly like the room we were just in the conference.
Yep.
So the video game room was recreated in real life for the conference, and it just like it all made sense. We're like,
super seamless.
which is kind of what I'm talking about, where Sony doesn't throw the hype at you, where it's just like boom, like dubstep and techno and flashy images, just
Look
like
how much
hey,
money
look,
we have.
we're in this. I mean, once you've seen it, look
Well,
how much
yeah,
money
you
we
got
got.
that now,
But it's just like like Sean Layden kept describing it as an experience. Like, look at this experience.
Yeah.
Just get ready for it.
Yeah,
It's like,
I mean, that's what, he set it up and saying that we're going to get deep into these games. We already know the games. We know kind of sort of what they're about. So we're going to take you into a side you haven't seen before.
Yeah.
This is the first time that we've really seen Ellie. We
Mhm.
saw her a long
Started playing
time
the
ago
guitar.
in the teaser with the guitar, but that was like 10 seconds. But this opens up on her. We go through normal trailer. She's
dance.
dancing and talking. She has a friend that looks like Glenn from The Walking Dead. I know it's not, but it just like I saw it. I was like, that's Glenn. It's not Glenn. It's not the same act. It's literally nothing to do
Dang
with
it, Glenn.
Dang it, Glenn. But so it's just like a normal scene. There's no zombies. There's no murder happening. And then she
Just happiness.
she goes in for a kiss with this girl, and then the camera like spins around.
Pans around to her head, and it just like as it gets behind her, it's close enough that her head covers the frame, and it just goes dark. And then as it rolls out to the other side, she's outside in a different setting. It's just completely seamless transition like that.
Yep.
Like, ooh.
And she was also you buried the lead here. She buried a knife in somebody's neck.
Yeah.
And that's just what you transitioned into, was just neck in knife. And if you played Last of Us, we played a little bit of it, and we know a decent amount about it. Ellie was not nearly this brutal, savage killer.
From necking to neck stabbing.
Yeah. You've been waiting for you had that ready
I
to
did
go.
just
That
a
was
second
good.
ago.
That was good. I like it. But so then we start seeing some gameplay. It's pretty similar to Last of Us. Stealth gameplay is, you see a lot of it. There was a bunch of different UI elements that we were seeing, which I didn't expect to see UI in this game.
Neither.
I was thinking we were a little bit farther from that, but you could see the stealth mechanic and how, you could be detected. You could see when you have things to craft, how much damage your machete can take before it breaks.
Your
those
weapons
kind
have
of things.
durability.
Very much a hardcore survival type thing.
Yep. Cool elements. Like he mentioned, we haven't played Last of Us yet. We're going to try and power through it before Last of Us 2 comes out.
We have tried multiple times, but we're scared little girls when it comes to stuff like that.
But now you live in a nice part of town.
That's
where
right.
We can play in the daytime.
So we can play whenever we want. So we're going to
That'll be
try and
perfect.
power through it together just to get through it. But
Maybe
so
we can stream it and have the internet keep us
But so it was a really good. It was probably a good 10 to 12 minutes, I would say. There was some real stealth, quiet, nighttime gameplay. It transitioned into a chase scene, and she had a gun with a few bullets and some really visceral animations, I would say.
It was intense. It was cool. She got hit by an arrow, which you get hit by arrows in other games, no big deal. But this one stuck in her, and I wasn't really paying attention to whether or not it was like slowly draining her health or not. But where the crafting menu icon popped up, or like the notification popped up, now there was a button that had an arrowhead and R1 attached to it. So we're like, what is that? And then it was like, maybe that's to pull the arrow out. And sure enough, she hides, and you got to hold R1, and she just pulls it out, and then yanks the arrow out and moves on.
Yep. Health didn't come back. I didn't see any changes. Maybe you're just hindered by it, and it's like, oh, I have an arrow in my shoulder, so it's harder for me to aim a gun. I don't know. They didn't show us that, but it was an interesting mechanic. You saw some very visceral executions, and then right at the end, she stabs somebody and like chops their head off, and then the camera spins around her
Rolls
face
around.
again, and they're back to kissing and back in this room in this dance, and she's happy. And it's a normal life, and that was the intro to it.
Yeah.
It was impressive. It was very good. We didn't even see any zombies or anything like that. It was very much just Last of Us, which I mean, we've seen a little bit.
We didn't really see
each
zombies
piece of
in
game.
the last.
No, right at the end
thing
we did.
too, did we?
The one where they had the girl that was hanging.
The arm
Oh, that's right. I forgot. There
hammer.
was a scene where they disemboweled somebody.
Arm and Hammer.
It was very gross. I wrote down that Ellie has grown the F up. Like she has gone from little girl to, and it's not necessarily her fault, but it's just what it is. She's just an adult now. So
when you're raised in an apocalypse, I imagine that
it's
has a
not really
tendency to
good for your.
influence.
Yeah, it kind of forces you to grow up.
you're
a bit,
raised as the one
I would
immune
assume.
to the zombies.
So I was very impressed. No release date. I was kind of sad we didn't at least get a year.
Yeah.
I mean, we know that we have Spider-Man in September. We've got Days Gone in February. There's kind of a big open in the summer and the fall next year. I'm sure that this game or Tsushima or Death Stranding will be there, but we didn't get any confirmation there, which is kind kind of sad.
I would guess that if any of these studios are going to be forced to have a release date between Media Molecule, Sucker Punch, and Naughty Dog is the last one on the list to be pressured into moving faster.
Yeah,
because they have such a long standing with Sony and because of the games they've made.
Right.
And they're like, hey, man, we just need a little bit more time. They're like, okay, we want to fill this slot. We're going to call Sucker Punch, be like, hey, can you have Ghost of Tsushima out sooner? Or like, can we slap a date on that so we can satisfy some people?
Yeah, so we'll see. I'm sure that the original thought, and we'll get to the other games later, is that we'd have something in the fall, then again in the spring of 2020, and then again in the fall of 2020. So I think we'll still probably stick to that. We just didn't get any confirmation for Last of Us 2. Looks really good. They had gameplay. They had UI elements, which makes me think that'll be like the first one. The fact that they had that much detailed UI as opposed to some of the other stuff we saw didn't, I think maybe that's a sign that it could be ready sooner.
They're rolling.
But it's really good to see it still.
Yep.
So then they had, this was interesting, and I called this a bit when we were first watching, but they cut from that to an outside booth with
Sid
Schumann and Ryan Clements, and they were interviewing a couple people, and it was kind of like a intermission is what they called it, and he as they moved to a new venue, and so apparently that venue was just for the Last of Us trailer, and they moved to their permanent venue. So during that time period, we saw they were talking with Sean, head of the Worldwide Studios. He said that they've worked with Santa Monica Studios and are working on New Game Plus for God of War.
Yay.
No idea as to when, but they said shortly on the PlayStation blog they'll have more information for us. So who knows if that's a week or 2 months.
I'll be honest,
or whatever.
like a New Game Plus would help me get the Platinum God of War more than me just running back through the sections to try and find it.
That's fair.
Like, hey, I have an objective to move forward to. Hey, while I'm here and I've already beaten the story, I can stop and look for everything.
Right. That's fair.
It's giving me a structure to move through the game.
So I'd love to play it again with all the weapons, because the big thing is like when you finish the end of the side missions and stuff, the Valkyrie stuff, like you get like really awesome things, but you have nothing left to do with it.
Yeah.
Because this isn't a place where like enemies constantly respawn. Like you can go back to areas and have some enemies, but you're not going back and fighting boss fights again with these cool weapons with different power ups and stuff. So I would love to be able to use that equipment again in New Game Plus, maybe seeing new weapons and stuff. So that's cool. They showed some Black Ops 4 stuff. Some four remastered Black Ops and Black Ops 2 maps. We knew about them before. We just got to see more of it tonight. It was Jungle, Summit, Firing Range, and a fourth one that I don't remember. It's Slums.
Yep.
Slums.
I was like, got it. It's
I remember
right there.
the one that I used to skip all the time. So they're coming to Black Ops 4. We knew that going in, but if you pre-order 4, you get the maps in Black Ops 3. Now, I don't know if you get them right now or if there was a release date. I thought they said it would be.
It kind of sounded like you get them
soon.
like in the immediate,
Yeah.
which would make sense because they said, well, what if you don't have Black Ops 3? To which they responded with, well, it's free for PlayStation Plus members from right now, June 11th through July 11th.
Yep. And mine's downloading right now on my PlayStation.
Yep.
So
I have mine waiting to download. My wife turned the PlayStation off because we were having power problems. We had thunderstorms here earlier, but
yeah. So that's cool. I mean, it's I don't know if I doubt it includes the DLC. It's probably just like the standard
base
stuff.
game, but I don't really need the DLC. I want those maps.
Yeah, that's
what I wanted to play.
Yeah. So now it's like, well, great. Now we even have to think about pre-ordering Black Ops 4 because we probably were going to get it, and so now it's like, oh man, it'd be cool to experience.
Got to get that battle royale.
I know
mode.
we don't need. I know we don't need to, but I want to.
Yeah.
So they showed a reel of the pre-E3 announcements. The stuff they had in the week leading up. They had the Tetris game. They had a couple VR games. The Days Gone release date announcement, which was February 22nd.
Yep.
So that was cool. Then they showed us the Destiny 2 Forsaken. That's the year 2 for Destiny. We saw the story trailer. It was good. They it's a minute and a half long. So looks really good. Kate apparently dies, or at least that's what they want you to think.
Just sad. I named my dog after Kate.
Right? That's sad. So the Prince Aldrin, he's the son of Queen Mara, who we think is dead. We don't know. We assume, but you never know with Destiny. So that looked really cool. It's definitely a darker tone, which is what people have been asking for. So that was fun. Then they jumped into Ghost of Tsushima.
Yeah.
Which was very clear because they opened in their new venue, which was the venue for the rest of the conference.
Giant video wall, like we're used to seeing.
Right. And it looked really nice. And it was like a bamboo clarinet is what it looked like the guy was playing on stage. And it was, I cannot pronounce that. So you're
shakuhachi.
Shakuhachi
is what I assume is how, or it might be, regardless.
Oh, it looks right.
Yeah.
So he was playing a shakuhachi
wrong, I'm sorry.
on stage, which was really cool. He was really good at it. It was, again, another solo music piece that transitioned into Ghost of Tsushima. See a guy come out with the big wide-brimmed hat that you see in Japan, I guess. I would assume you do. I've seen it. I've seen it in Japan.
But have you?
But
good that you're back.
He's just like leading with his horse and then just like rotates around and then boom,
we're in the game.
Camera behind him, just like God of War and Last of Us style of like over the shoulder, third person.
Yep. So Ghost of Tsushima, it opens up with like day 9 of Mongol invasion, little like text sting, and so obviously we have a setting, and so he moves forward to find and moves through like a battlefield, wouldn't it?
That's what it looked like.
It looked like some kind of remnants of a lot of dead people. And then called the horse and commenced to riding forward.
Yep.
To find a priest being held up.
Yeah, monk. I think that's what they call him a monk. But so he jumped off the horse and got into combat, and it was
awesome.
It was really fast, and like you see samurais and you don't really know what to expect. The only sword game we've really had last couple of years is For Honor, which is very heavy, a lot different than this. And this was just super like instant.
This first enemy walks up and he's holding it like if you ever have like he's holding it up like you would do like they did in the last Samurai, which who knows how accurate that is, but he's holding it up here and he comes to swing up and this dude just like whips his sword out and cuts him open. I was like, wow, it's so fast.
It was, and so they had some parries and some dodging and stuff. The interesting thing I saw, there's really no UI elements, which is not surprising, but it wasn't locked to your back. There was a scene where he dodged and he kind of went so he was parallel to the camera, and the camera just stayed there, and he kept fighting from that perspective.
Yeah, it looked like Tekken all of a sudden.
Yeah,
it turned and then like now you're in a side to side fighter.
So I don't know if that's just a cinematic way for
that still happens. I'm sorry,
it still happens.
Hang on, there it is.
So I don't know if that was just like a cinematic way for them to show it, or if that's actually what gameplay would be like. But it was really interesting. I don't know how like my brain would wrap controls around at that point, because I can't think of a lot of third person games that don't lock that camera down.
I'm sure they exist. We've played them, and you just kind of get used to need to know where you're looking all the time.
But I would say a good 90% of third person combat like that is locked behind the camera.
That's true.
Or locked behind you. Some stealth elements. Obviously, you are in old school Japan.
Feudal Japan.
You looked up Mongol, and it was like 1200s.
Yeah, Mongol War was like 1200s, and then like the feudal era, I think I had right, is like early 1100s to mid to late 1600s.
Yeah, so it's obviously that would be in that time frame somewhere
right there.
But so they showed you come up over the top similar to like a Batman game, and you pick your enemy, they get silhouetted, you pick them, and then it slowed down time so you could jump like dash between enemies.
It was cool. And once you're done with that, there's a dude outside this little like paper wall who blew a horn, so he just stabs through the wall and then brings it back in. Like, oh, that guy's really dead.
Yeah. And then I think the best part was he comes out for this other fight. And I know we're going to a lot of detail, but that's because the trailer was really cool. It was really detailed. And they're fighting under a tree that has lost like all its leaves. So all its like very bright red leaves are on the ground. And as you move in combat and dodge and stuff, the leaves are getting kicked up in a natural way. And they like stay where
moved
you
out,
put them.
like when they like shuffled their feet during like footwork for the sword fight.
Yeah.
Like it shuffled leaves out of the way and they stayed out of the way. It wasn't just like it kicked up a few like selected leaves that are going to move. It's like, no, if you walked there, the leaves moved from there.
Yeah.
And
there was some fire in the background that was like slowly advancing, and it just really added to the whole element. It was awesome. There was some parkour. I don't know if you noticed there was a grappling hook in one sequence.
He like whips the hook out to jump.
It was
from
real
one roof to the
subtle.
other.
Like, and all of a sudden I just saw him hold onto a rope. But so there's some elements of that. Again, another one with no release date. This one seems a little bit farther off. This is a very small snippet, very specific scene. I'm sure they've been working on this for a long time. I don't know. I'm sold on it. I don't know if it's something I had wanted before, but I want it now.
Yeah, who knows? Yes, I definitely want it now. When you first heard about it, I was like, okay, like it doesn't sound bad, but it doesn't really sound like my speed. But then it turned to it, and just something I mentioned to James when we were watching the combat. here's a fun video trick for you guys if you're ever shooting fight scenes. When a person goes to make contact with someone, you like cut a frame out right when contact's meant to be hit, and it looks like it makes an impact, and that's kind of what it looked like.
Right.
And I think it was probably just like screen jitter every time it moves, but it was really fast, but you could see when you landed hits because they made it very apparent.
Yeah.
But it felt really good at the same time. I don't know. I'm excited for that game.
Yeah, it looked really good. I think that one's probably past Last of Us Part 2. Last of Us Part 2 just seemed a little bit more polished. It looks really good. We started to notice here as they transition between the games, they had like a dream sequence. And so Dreams, if you haven't heard of Dreams, it's a
Dreams the game.
Yeah, Dreams the game, not just like some kind of magic band.
Media
called
Molecule.
So Media Molecule is the one that did Little Big Planet stuff, among other things. And so Dreams is this game where you can make games inside of it. And it's this huge creative studio that you can do and compose music stuff. So everything they showed for transitions in that style was made within Dreams on a PS4
100%.
or probably PS4 Pro. But
and they had those guys set up as the pre-show, the two little dudes from another thing, which I forgot the name of, and then people from Dreams just like hanging out, just like doing little like, hey, the show's gonna start soon.
Yeah, so that was cool. And then we saw one, never heard of this one before, called Control.
Yeah,
is from Remedy and 505 Games. I think Remedy is the main developer on it. 2019. It looked like somebody that had the Force. That's what I thought. Like I thought of a Jedi, right? She's just picking up objects and moving them and throwing them and destroying them with physics. And
it looked a little bit like
and...
Infamous.
Okay,
that kind of thing. Like where it's just like, oh yeah, I have powers and I move in, but like you switch between all these different styles of power seamlessly. I don't know, it was super cool.
Yeah. And
look
it
at that
didn't
trailer.
seem to be cinematic. It seemed to be like pretty gameplay oriented, like with the way the camera was. Looked really cool. We didn't hear much about it. We've never heard of this before. No mention if it's exclusive or not. I imagine if it was, they would have told us. Yeah. But it still looked really cool.
I mean, that being said, they didn't necessarily mention any of these things being exclusive because you just kind of assume.
Well, I mean, you just kind of know. But yeah. So then the next one was the one we've been waiting for all week, Resident Evil 2 remake. And you weren't quite sure because it starts in and you're like the perspective of a rat, and you don't realize it right away. But all of a sudden you're crawling up a shelf. And there's a commotion going on, and then the shelf falls down, and it falls out on top of you, and it cuts like to outside of you, and you're a rat. And then you see a cop get tackled, and he's got a zombie biting him, and you're like, well, that's weird. We already seen Days Gone. This is different.
Yeah.
And then you've got Leon Kennedy shows up, pops him right in the back of the skull, and you just knew like the whole audience got up in it. And then you see some scenes, some very familiar scenes. You see Claire Redfield a little bit later on. So you definitely know what game it is. Resident Evil 2, completely remade from the ground up.
Yep.
Brand new graphics.
Third person.
Looked really good. Yeah, they got the third person style of Resident Evil 4 that everybody liked. It's kind of the best of both worlds.
Yeah.
And we got a release date, January 25th, 2019. Now,
I picked that one up. I never really got into the Resident Evil games, but
that's because I don't like scary games, and I don't think I'm going to start here.
Yeah, but we'll push through it. Just
we
like
might
do The Last of Us.
We might push through.
By the time we get through The Last of Us, we're going to be just past this whole scary thing. Nothing can scare us ever again. Nothing can scare us ever again, James.
Okay, got it. So that looked really cool. I was glad to see Sony was able to get that. Then they just opened up with Bathtub Guy.
Well, just like a big white screen, and in the middle in green letters said Squanch Games.
And if you know that, like that's Rick and Morty, like through and through, like you knew it as soon. So it's Bathtub Guy.
It's Justin Roiland.
Yeah. So Bathtub Guy, whoever that guy is.
Hey, what's up? I'm Bathtub Guy. I'm always in the bathtub doing stuff, and I'm here to talk about this game.
Yeah. It was that super like drawn out dialogue from like interdimensional cable and stuff from Rick and Morty. It's just a cute little VR game, and then the character comes in that is the main character as the guy gets electrocuted and dies because he's playing in a bathtub with electronics. And it was definitely sounded like Morty.
Yeah.
So it just looked really cool. VR support, no release date or anything like that. I'm sure it's relatively soon.
Yeah.
So that was cool, but it definitely had Justin
very much in the vein
of
Accounting Plus, I think is the game, VR game by Squanch Games as well.
Oh, okay.
And it's Justin Roiland doing that same kind of thing.
Right.
Like just a ridiculous game where you move through. But
yeah.
So if you're familiar with Accounting Plus, I think is what same style.
Yeah. So that was cool. I didn't expect that.
Me neither.
And then Kingdom Hearts 3, finally it was a new trailer.
Yeah, we saw a trailer in the Microsoft conference, which either came out before this video that we talked about or is coming out after. Keep a lookout. And then we saw one in the Square Enix conference, which we won't do. We will not.
Yeah, we're not doing.
Put a podcast out for that mess, and which was the same trailer for both of those conferences, like the exact same one, but this one was a new one.
Yep, this one's actually new. It launched in, and you were you were a pirate. You were with Captain Jack Sparrow,
Yeah.
and his whole crew. I thought maybe it'd just be Jack Sparrow, but no,
It's everybody.
you had everybody. There was some ship combat because they needed another method of combat in this game.
No, why not?
I've never really gotten into the Kingdom Hearts series.
Going to.
I'm going to. But it looked almost like Black Flag, right? That kind of like ship.
Yeah, very cartoony Black Flag.
Cartoony, obviously, but controlling the whole ship as opposed to just running back and forth on a ship.
Yeah.
So it's interesting. They had the same. I don't know if it's an issue or just what they wanted.
It must be something they did on purpose because it cuts to what I assume is Kingdom Hearts theme, big Kingdom Hearts song.
Right.
It was in both the other trailers as well, but it goes from having the trailer sounding like you think it would, like epic music. You hear the dialogue and then the sound effects of everything, and then it cuts to this new song, and all of a sudden it just sounds like they plucked dialogue and left everything else out. So you have this weird, awkward silence whenever like Hercules drops in, and you just hear him going, "Ugh."
It's just the
and
music.
it's that awkward. That moment right there where it was just kind of weirdly quiet
weird.
and you heard nothing. Just imagine a kind of strange song in the background of it, and then that's what it was.
Yeah, so they had Tangled and Monsters Inc. and Frozen in this one as well. Some of the stuff we'd seen before.
Yep.
There's a lot of fan service. There was a lot of characters that we don't recognize that we obviously should recognize. So it's cool. They briefly announced the limited edition PS4 Pro. Okay, had a fancy design on the outside of the game, or outside of the PlayStation, and then the controller.
Yeah.
That looked cool. And then they advertised an all-in-one package only on PS4 that includes 1.5,
2.5,
and 2.8.
2.8,
and
4. And 3. And 4.
4.
Kingdom Hearts 4. We're skipping 3.
Coming in
Forget
2031.
There's 4 games.
Yeah, so no price or anything like that or release date. I'd love to do that because I don't have any of the games, but I don't want to have to wait until Kingdom Hearts 3 comes out. So maybe it's one of those things where like, buy this now, get all this stuff here, and then you can play 3.
I would certainly hope it's that way. If you
would
pre-order that specific setup, to be like, all right, here you can do these 3 games now, and then 3 when it comes out.
So that was cool. It was good to see some new stuff there. Then Death Stranding.
Yeah, which
I still have questions. So many
more questions.
He answered a couple things.
I have more questions with context. That's basically what I have now.
That's right.
I have context for all the questions I have.
And then I wrote down main character because I can't remember the guy's name.
Sam.
No,
Norman Reedus?
Yeah, Norman Reedus. So it opens on Norman Reedus. He's talking with somebody.
His name is Sam.
It sounds like he's talking about some kind of moral quandary. He's like, well, whatever, I don't care. I'm just a delivery guy. I just deliver things.
Like somebody wanted him to do extra work. And like, I'm just a delivery guy. I'm not doing that.
And so then it just showed him going across various landscapes with different loads on his
large
back.
landscapes.
Some really large scapes, some really large. He was carrying a body one time wrapped up like a mummy. That was different. And just some of that stuff. We also saw a female character that was doing some of the same things he was.
Yeah.
Looked playable as far as we could tell.
Mm-hmm.
There was no UI elements or anything.
Yeah. I think this seemed like a trailer just to show like, hey, here's the game running in the engine. Yep. Like, here's how far it's coming along. This is the only game we're going to get status updates for the next 10 years. It's not going to be this Final Fantasy VII, which we didn't see, by the way. And like these games,
spoiler alert,
which we just hear about once, and then we're like, didn't they mention that game like 4 years ago?
Right.
Like now we see, didn't they mention that game 4 years ago? Yeah, we saw new footage for it last year. We're going to see this whole game before you ever get to play it.
Yeah. So
maybe that's the secret. They're actually going to show us the whole game, and it's not actually going to be a playable game. It's just been this like E3 like running movie. And then for like $5, you buy the movie at the end whenever they're done with it.
Yeah. So they had some cool like quotes in there as they superimposed some text on it. There was another female character that came in towards the end that was having dialogue with Norman Reedus.
She mentioned something like, can you see them?
Yeah.
He says, no, I don't have this. You have the extension on me or something. I don't know.
Yeah, but you can like feel
feels
them.
like nonsense dialogue.
But so you see them like walking and their feet look like hands and
they had claws.
Yeah, like claws on
like
their
as they
hands.
lift up,
five.
Like the detail in the sand as they were walking was actually really cool.
Oh, it was insane. But you notice that things would grow behind them. Then later in a scene, you see she says like that time fast forwards for anything that they touch, but it doesn't. Not everything's affected by it or something like that.
Yeah.
And so then you see at the very end, he's got this baby. There's another baby thing, and it's sitting in this goop, and this thing pops out of his backpack and starts running around, just womp, 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 womp. And then he like taps on the glass, and the baby like comes up and starts looking around, and then you could see like shadows of them like floating.
Yeah.
And as you were walking and more of them came closer to you, you saw like plants grow up real quick and then die almost instantly. Yeah. Just as you walk, it was super creepy. And then he gets like dragged down. He gets caught and dragged down into it, and that's kind of the end of the trailer.
Yeah, it's got me interested. Like before, it's just, but in the last couple years when we've seen it, it's been like, okay, I don't want to hear about it anymore. Like, just cool, you're working on it. Go freaking work on it. But now that I've seen it, I'm like, this is the trailer I saw. I'm like, I want to know more. Yeah. Like, tell me more. But at the same time, don't freaking tell me more. Like, finish it. Let me see the game.
This goes without saying, but no release date yet. Not a year or anything. That one's got to be far off. That's got to be the last. I think of all the ones we've been seeing, that's the last one on the list. Then this one was a bit of a surprise. Neo 2.
Yeah.
It just was a cinematic trailer. Nothing real fancy. Just 20, 30 seconds.
Yep.
But it's there. It exists. It's not coming this year.
Get ready for it, yo.
It's probably not coming next year. No release date. So that's cool if that was your thing. I was surprised by it. I guess it was pretty well received. It just wasn't. It's like Dark Souls, but like samurai and faster, like Ninja Gaiden type stuff.
Yeah, I feel like you could subhead these last 2 years of Sony conferences with no release date.
That's so frustrating.
Yeah,
I get it.
Because last year was like all these games are coming out with
we thought we'd
see 2019.
It was the same exact conversation we had last year.
Yeah, and then this year it was like, oh yeah, here's these games. All right, next game.
Yeah. So Neo 2, that's kind of cool. More Dreams transition pieces. Then we got to get into Spider-Man. We saw the Raft, Supermax Prison. We saw a bunch of villains. We saw Electro, which we shot with Shocker. Go figure. We saw Rhino. Rhino jumped in, full on like metal armor, looking awesome. Scorpion was in there, very green, beautiful like forest green. Vulture, also green. I was unexpected by that because I just after having watched Spider-Man: Homecoming, he doesn't wear green in that, so I was very confused.
He does wear green.
I thought
the Spider-Man 3 he was in the video game.
Yeah. But I was thinking, like, when I saw it, I was like, Green Goblin. Like, no. I'm sure Green Goblin's in there. There's no way they can make one without him. Vulture and the Mr. Negative, which we knew he was in there. It ends with him. All 5 of them converge on this rooftop, crap out of Spider-Man.
Yep.
And then he's like,
they keep referencing a him.
It's you. And they were like referencing a him.
He was really white. They were like, no, he told us not to kill him.
Yep.
And then who's he? And then you see him look at someone, and then it flashes to white. And it's like, Spider-Man.
Yeah. So who knows? Who knows what that is or who it is? I'm sure we will find out.
So.
And then that was pretty much the end of the main conference that we saw. That's where the showcase stopped. You go back outside. We saw From Software PlayStation VR called Decina.
Yeah, I think Decina.
Decina.
I don't know. It was a huge departure from Software's latest game.
Yeah,
it's a lot of Froms. So if you're unfamiliar, From does Dark Souls. They do Bloodborne. They have what's that Shadows Die Twice game? It's coming out. It was in the Xbox conference.
I don't remember the first name, like Shuriko or something. Shakiro.
Yeah. So they have another Souls style looking game, but this one is like a VR game. It's like really artsy looking, and it has like color, which who knew they knew how to do. And but to stick with the theme, had no release date.
Yep.
So From Software and Japan Studios. So
yep, no real info on it. It was just this pretty little thing like, hey, guess what? You don't have to kill things in our game. Don't have to kill things in every game we make.
Whoa, let's not get ahead of ourselves.
Then we saw a Spider-Man live demo. A lot of open world gameplay. Guy was actually playing it. So you could tell because he was getting hit, and it was great. It looked really smooth.
Just got hung up on a few spots. You're like, hey.
Yeah, that's exactly what I would do.
Exactly. Except for I would get stuck there for much longer.
But it was super polished. The animations looked a lot crisper than what we've seen. We saw a lot of, before when we looked at footage, we would see as he'd fly through the air, he had the exact same pose for most of his flying. That's gone now. That's fixed. There's a bunch
hooks up, and then like as he's doing it, it's almost like he's turning at the camera to look at you, like, "Hey, check out what we're doing."
Yeah, he was he was walking on the street going into a building, and he just like saluted a guy and
saluted a guy on the
ran up the thing. So
it's very much like the Spider-Man that you want to see. Like it's like kind of like sarcastic. I mean, I think we've seen him before. Like I don't think we've seen him in a video game really done well.
Yeah,
before.
Yeah, so it was good, his good little riffs and one-liners and stuff. The nice, like, PG appropriate version of Deadpool is what I like to think of it as.
Yeah.
He's very family friendly, but also like always has something to say. If you didn't know, this Spider-Man is 8 years into his reign as Spider-Man, so he has a bunch of tricks and stuff. You are not getting an origin story. This is Spider-Man. We all know who Spider-Man and Peter Parker are.
Uncle Ben.
So that's cool. I don't think we're gonna have to deal with Uncle Ben. I sure hope not.
Boy,
Boy, I've
No.
seen that enough. That's like a Bruce Wayne.
I'm not
moment
even
right
sad when he dies anymore. I'm just kind of like, yeah, it's about time, dude. I want to get to the rest of the game.
So we noticed they were called Fisk hideouts. So Fisk is obviously a main villain, which
Yep.
we kind of
Looked like it went back to the location, similar location that we saw on E3 last year. That was like a cinematic quick time play, but this time it was like a hideout, which like clearing. I mean, familiar game mechanic, clear a hideout, kind of take over the area, kind of deal.
Right. But they showed, you scan for city events, you can get up there and hit R3, and it would show these huge beams of light everywhere, little icons. So it looked really cool. Like I said, very, very much looked like a polished finish. It looks done. Like I didn't see, which is good. I mean, it comes out in September, so it better be done. So that's exciting. It was cool to see a live demo. They went back to Ghost of Tsushima. They had developers out in a very stealthy cut where they showed the playable demos they had for Spider-Man and cut back, and all of a sudden there were different people sitting there. So they were just showing some highlights of the Tsushima showcase video. The developers talked about how they're really big on authenticity. They really want to feel the lethality of the combat and how quick it is, and how precise.
Every strike is meant to kill someone.
Yeah.
So
it's not a hack and slash.
They have a guy in that they're like studying this sword technique and how to do it, which is probably why it looks so authentic and less action movie and more like actual legit.
Samurai. Yeah, they said they have a whole team of like culture, like I can't remember what they called it, but people that study the culture in order to make sure they're doing it right. So that's always exciting. They had Media Molecule out to talk about Dreams. All of them were made within Dreams. While they were sitting there, they basically made a whole level.
Awesome.
I think they were just showing us a video, but I didn't realize this until now. But you can co-op it while making a level in Dreams.
Yeah, and it's not like, I mean, yeah, you can build the level together, but you don't just have to build the level together.
Yeah,
you can have somebody play testing the level as you're building it.
Yeah,
so it's like I want to make this jump this high, and I go like, oh, dude, I can't make that jump. You need to make it lower, and so just perfect. Let's do that.
Yeah,
like this game is built
insane.
For dude, I love it.
I know
it's so cool.
It'll be really cool.
It's like a step up.
Yeah.
It's like 10 steps up on Mario Maker. That's awesome.
Yeah. They do have in-game composer for music, which is apparently very detailed. So that's really cool. I've seen a little bit of it. There is a beta coming this year. That's all we know.
Yep.
I would almost guarantee that Dreams comes out next year if we're seeing a beta this year.
Yeah.
Maybe it'll even still come out like around Christmas time. So fingers crossed. But I was glad we got to see Dreams. We got to hear from them.
Yeah.
We were nervous when they said these are the 4 games we're talking about, and one of them wasn't Dreams.
I think we've done a little bit more in-depth talk on Dreams several months ago at this point.
Yeah, when we saw some of the new gameplay come out for it. But everything I see, it's having the opposite effect for me that No Man's Sky had, right? Is we had this huge scope and they tried to narrow it and didn't really describe it, and then we get the game, it was nothing like what we asked. And Dreams was like, well, I don't know how to wrap my mind around this. And it's like, here's a bunch of examples.
Yeah.
And it's like, now I'm getting more and more of the picture.
Because when they first talked about it, they were like, yeah, it's a game that you make the game. You're like, we're going to give you all the tools and you make the game. And so you're like, what do you mean I make the game? And they're like, well, it has you can build levels, and then you can play levels, and then you can curate levels, and you can make music, and you can play with your friends. And it's like, oh, okay.
Yeah. That was because I was very turned off initially by it, just because I don't need a creative game. Like that's not like where I excel.
Like play games,
but just watching them create it, and I've seen some demos of it before this, so this wasn't necessarily new footage. But I was like, man, that's really easy, and it looks fun, and it just would be cool because
they were using one tool. They were using a clone tool, and literally just like they're like, hey, here's look like a pre-made section of the world. Like, hey, here's a little chunk, and I'm gonna take this piece I want to here. I want more trees here, and I'm gonna extend this path out. I can grab this chunk, multiply it 10 times, and then twist it.
Yeah.
Like
just from your controller. Like no fancy keyboards or editing tools needed.
So cool.
So it's going to be really cool. They had a PlayStation VR montage, some new stuff. There was a lot of games in it. There's probably 20. It looked a lot like the ID at Xbox montage in that we saw like 20 to 25 games in it.
You just fly through games.
Really cool games.
Quick.
Games we've seen before, some games we've never seen before. Creed.
I forget the subheading
Can't
for
forget the subheading, but boxing game with both move sticks. Done. Sold. I would do that in a heartbeat on PlayStation VR.
Yeah.
That would be awesome. Takes Wii Sports and just shoves it into the ground. Awesome.
Wii Sports, I don't think is a big competitor in the market anymore.
But that's the only boxing game I've ever played.
Ago.
But that's the only boxing game I've played, like with the Wiimotes and
Arms.
stuff. I didn't play that.
I didn't either, but
exactly.
Arms is a game that's out now, I think, right?
But now it's the same thing, but in VR.
Yeah.
basically. So
I think it's cool.
that's cool. All right. So overall, what are your thoughts about what we saw tonight?
Man, I looked at that and I looked at you and I was like, man, tell me why there's like 70 million units in the wild for
Right.
PS4, right? Like, it's just so cool. When we watched the Xbox conference, and I think wherever the video landed, and I'll probably say this there too, but Xbox is doing some really cool things. I think Phil
100%.
Spencer has the right mindset, but bear in mind, like, they just bought like 5 studios. But Sony already has like 13 studios.
Yep. 13.
And so they're already past that part,
They already did that.
and they're getting the payoff of all that.
Yep.
And so Xbox, as much as me like rag on them for like, where's your exclusives? Where's your games? You have this great hardware. Where's your games? Like, Sony is there. They have the games, and I just think
They planned
I don't
ahead
know.
better.
I'm so excited to be a PlayStation owner and look at where we're at and be
Yeah, I
like,
mean,
we're going to spend a ton of money
5,
on these
10
games.
years ago, you look at what Sony was doing in order to make up after the disaster that was the launch of the PS3, and you see that their commitment is now. It's like we had something, with Horizon Zero Dawn, and we had Nier Automata, which isn't first party, but that was exclusive, and then you've got God of War, and you've got Detroit Become Human, and you've got all these games that we just saw today, and it's like, and when one of those comes out, we'll have another one from studios after that. Guerrilla Games is still working on Horizon sequel, and there's just always things happening.
Yeah.
And now it's like they've built this well-oiled machine, and now it just runs itself.
Yeah, we're getting first-party games like every quarter. Like we were just talking about, like we have these 4 games. Well, there's 4 quarters. We're getting one this fall. We're getting one Q1 of 2019. Surely we're going to get one in
At some other point in 2019.
Yeah, in another point in 2019. It's like, wow, like you just have something to constantly look forward to as a PlayStation gamer.
Yeah, between your multiplats and things like
not
that.
to mention all the multi-platform games.
Yeah, I
Like-
mean, I wasn't blown away by the conference. I think they set expectations appropriately.
Yeah.
People just don't listen, right? Because they
Right.
told us a month ago, this is what we're going to get. These are our 4 pillars. This is what we're going to focus on. Like, we're not going to have these huge, crazy announcements. So we got to see Resident Evil 2, which we kind of assumed since we hadn't seen it anywhere else yet, but you never really know.
Yeah.
We didn't see Final Fantasy 7, which I don't think is Sony's fault, but
Yeah, that wouldn't be on Sony.
that's now 3 years since the announcement, and we've seen nothing. We know that Square Enix brought everything back in-house because they had some issues with it. That was like a year and a half
I
ago.
wonder how much they had to redo. Like,
Get to
you would think,
a
like,
lot of it.
that would suck if they get like, man, this isn't going anywhere we want at all. Like,
Yeah.
we're going to have to scrap it and start over.
So that's probably why we haven't seen that. But we didn't see any Splinter Cell. A lot of rumors were about that. I'm not necessarily bummed, but
No.
it's just another
We got
year without
some,
Splinter Cell
like,
stuff.
I mean, as far as Tom Clancy games, like, we got some updates for Siege and
Division 2.
Division 2. So they're doing like seasonal updates for Siege, and obviously Division 2 is a new game. So
Yeah, so Splinter Cell, that's we were kind of hoping to see that. I'm just really bummed about the release dates. The same thing I probably said last year if I
Probably.
go back and look at it. With the amount of focus that they put on these games, I feel like we should have at least got a year for them.
yeah,
Like, it just give us something to nibble on. I'm not looking for like a quarter or a time frame like that. Maybe they're saving that for PlayStation Experience, but that's another 6 months. So it's like, I don't know what
that's probably when you get like the dates for like The Last of Us and
So it just seems like a little bit of a miss there.
Yeah.
Because they had gameplay for everything, right? This is something that Microsoft didn't have, right? We had some cinematics here, but almost every single game we had today had gameplay. Like, there was a couple that were exceptions. Neo 2 didn't have anything. But far and away, it's like these things had gameplay. We should have a year. There's no reason not to.
Yeah.
Because I think even if you say 2019 and it doesn't make that, it's different than saying like February 2019 and then going to like October or something. It's like, I would have liked to see a number, even though we probably know where it's at. I don't think all 3 of those games will get pushed back to 2020. I don't think Sony wants to do that.
No.
And I don't think that's a thing. But I would say I'd probably give this a B. I give it a B. I think they did good at what they said they would do. Just they missed the bar in a couple places.
I think
for me.
they probably did the legwork up front of setting expectations.
Yes,
Of like, hey,
they did.
here's what you should be looking. And because we're all the internet, we're like, oh yeah, it's gonna be like all these other conferences. And Sean Layden, it felt like he wasn't trying to say it outright or anything, but when he was doing the interview after that first segment, he's like, this is what I tried to tell you. Like, bear in mind, this is what I said. Like, not him trying to like say, like, oh, sorry if this conference sucks, but it's like no, like, this is what we wanted to do. Like,
Right.
we don't need the big show. Like,
Mhm.
we're already out there. We're out there. You have our consoles in your living room. Just like, here's what we're doing.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I think it was really good. What out of this list of stuff you got today are you looking forward to the most?
I mean, I think just Spider-Man because it's right around the corner.
Yeah.
I can't.
It's hard not to be like locked on that first immediate thing.
I can't get enough of it. It looks so good. Ghost of Tsushima is probably lower on my list. I still want it, obviously.
Yeah.
Like really good. The very first one, though, Last of Us 2, that was just the facial animations that we saw, just the dialogue. I'm blown away by how it looks.
No one's I think Last of Us 2 is gonna be such a good story. Right,
like, first one was really good.
Yeah, I mean, we assume.
That's what
it was like the first game in forever to get a 10 out of 10 for people.
Right.
And so now, since then, we've had like God of War got 10s from a lot of people. Yeah. Detroit's not doing quite that well, but I'm playing through Detroit.
Detroit's are like 85, 80, like
which is still like really high scores. And we're getting these games from Sony first party studios that are just telling these fantastic stories, which is the part of Last of Us 2 that I'm looking forward to.
Yep.
So I think it'll be fun. I am also looking forward to Spider-Man most. It's like it's right there, and I'm like September. Like my birthday's in September. Like guess what I'm doing with my birthday money.
I'm bummed that there was no like PS4 Pro special edition announced for it.
I know.
Was really hoping
it would look so good to have just like
I
a
feel
bright
like
red PS4 with a white spider on it.
Could be like there's still opportunities, still time.
When's PSX
out for it? December.
December? Yeah, it'd be too late.
No, it'd be too late. I still think that we might see one. We've seen some collector's edition stuff, so I don't know. I won't hold my breath, but
yeah, it'd be cool.
That's gonna do it for Sony.
Yeah. So, guys, like we said, there is a Microsoft recap coming or has already happened. So make sure you check that one out as well. Make sure you follow us on Twitter at IR Games. We'll tell you what we're doing. Like I said, we're trying to do the Twitch thing a little bit more often. Trying to do like a live podcast format, which will have like a pre and post show, which is kind of us hanging out with people in chat, and it's a little bit less formal and topic-y and more just kind of conversational. Yep. So make sure you head over there, twitch.tv/invertedrealitygames. And thanks for hanging out, guys. Bye.